If you received an SD card in the mail with no note attached and no return address, what would you do with it? Well, here at the ABC, we are definitely not meant to do this. Officially, we are meant to call IT or chuck it in the bin. In 2010, CNN's Tokyo bureau had exactly this experience. They received a rogue SD card and they chucked it in the bin. If they'd opened it, here's what they would have found. It's a video of a Chinese fishing boat harassing and ramming a Japanese Coast Guard patrol boat near the disputed Senkaku Islands northeast of Taiwan. And this video was hot property. Every news organisation in Asia was looking for it. Ever since a diplomatic dispute was triggered by the arrest of the Chinese fishing boat's captain.
Japan says he used his ship to deliberately ram one of their Coast Guard vessels near these disputed islands. China wants Japan to release the captain.
One of the Japanese Coast Guardsmen was confused. Why wasn't the government releasing the video that clearly showed the Chinese boat was at fault? Well, it's because the Japanese government was actually quite spooked.
Japan appears to be trying to cool down the situation.
See, China had cut off exports of rare earth elements to Japan, and
it has Japanese electronics producers panicking.
Japan is the land of electronics, and modern electronics all need rare earth elements. In 2010, China was the world's only source of rare earths, and they were cutting back exports in order to use them in their domestic electronics industry.
China suddenly slashed its exports by 72%.
That sent prices soaring. Some elements have gained as much as fivefold in just the last few months.
The panic lasted most of 2011, but then Chinese supply returned, and everyone kind of forgot about it. Until February this year.
It's a very big deal. It could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things.
US President Donald Trump in particular has been suddenly expressing a huge interest in rare earth elements.
You know, we need the rare earth, and we have some here, but we don't have enough.
He's been frantically hunting for rare earth elements in Canada, Greenland and Ukraine, and even here in Australia.
We're also signing agreements in various locations to unlock rare earths and minerals and lots of other things all over the world.
But this whole debate over rare earths, it's a lot stranger than it seems. So what's really going on here? Is Donald Trump on a wild goose chase? Or is he on the brink of a gold rush?
Tons of gold.
I'm Matt Bevan, and this is If You're Listening. I've got to start here by saying that the terminology in this area is very messy. Critical materials and rare earth elements aren't the same thing, though sometimes they do overlap. Today, we're talking specifically about rare earth elements, which does not include lithium, copper, nickel, and cobalt. We'll get to those another day. Rare earth elements kind of have the vibe of science fiction or fantasy about them. The rings of power, the infinity stones, something like that. In this case, though, there's not 6 stones, there's 17. And these rare earth elements are extremely important in the modern world. They're in your phone, your speakers, your hard drives, your cameras, your TV, your EV battery, your wind turbine, your attack helicopter, your anti-tank missile, your fighter jet. Okay, maybe you don't have all those things. Neither do I. Yet. One of the commonly used rare earths is called neodymium, which is used to make powerful magnets. Each electric vehicle needs between 1 and 2 kilos of neodymium to build its motor.
The neodymium iron boron magnets are also used in the drives of hybrid vehicles.
This is a neodymium magnet. It's got it. Extremely powerful given its size. Check this out. But here's the exciting thing about this magnet. I can actually make one myself. Off you go. Bye-bye, little magnet. Bye-bye. Good boy. I can actually make one myself. We're in a cost of living crisis, and building artisanal magnets could be a good opportunity to diversify my revenue streams. The cool thing is, rare earths are located in trace amounts in the ground all around us, even in our backyards. So I've dug a kilo of dirt up out of my yard, and I've crushed it up, kind of, and I'm going to pop it into this jar full of mysterious and horrifying chemicals. Here we go. Now I need to blow bubbles into it. Straw. Blow bubbles through it. The bits that I want are going to float to the top. Okay. This is taking a lot longer than I expected. Can we fast forward through this bit a little bit? And voila. It's only taken a few months and about 50 more steps, but I have the equivalent of 1 rice grain worth of neodymium. Also, I have this jar of horrifying waste products, which is now also radioactive. But that's not a problem because there is a pond at the end of my street. I'll just put that into the hose there. Grab the other end. One moment. Now, say I do this to my entire yard until I get to a kilo of neodymium. I'll end up with roughly 50,000 litres of toxic radioactive waste. Those ducks in that pond will love it though. So once I've done all that, the market will pay me about $95 for my kilo of neodymium. Because see, the thing about rare earths is...
They're not rare, they're more abundant than silver.
Yeah, they're not rare at all. Guess where I got my little neodymium magnet from?
I just got it from Hammerbarn.
Ooh.
We're going to Hammerbarn.
Yeah, Hammerbarn!
Yeah, Hammerbarn. You can get a big chunk of rare earth elements from Hammerbarn for about $10. Even though these elements are vital for modern life and modern military technology, they're not precious metals. They're not valuable in small quantities. You've got to mine and process tons of it and create even more tons of toxic byproducts before you start making any money. So if they're so important, why are they so cheap? Well, it has something to do with this. This is the tailings pond of the rare earths facility in the city of Baotou in northern China. Note the lack of ducks. Ideally, this sludge is meant to stay in the pond, but occasionally it seeps into the Yellow River just to the south. Thankfully though, the Yellow River isn't China's second most important source of drinking and irrigation water. Oh wait, I'm being told that actually it is. The rare earths facility nearby is primarily a steel mill. They just happen to make the rare earths as a byproduct, and it's not exactly a modern operation. Until 2008, they used steam trains to shunt the slag wagons around. The cranes overhead play haunting music when they move to warn people to watch their head, but that only makes the place more dystopian. By 2010, when the Chinese fishing boat rammed the Japanese Coast Guard, about 2/3 of the global rare earth supply was coming from Baotou. The rest was coming from similar facilities elsewhere in China.
They mine 97% of the world's rare earth supplies.
And because the Chinese government has a monopoly on rare earth elements, they set the price. And the price is so cheap, it's virtually impossible for democratic countries to compete.
Now, if China would simply let the market work on its own, we'd have no objections. But their policies currently are preventing that from happening.
The funny thing is, if not for the fishing boat incident and the subsequent export reductions back in 2011, they probably would have retained a permanent monopoly. But the incident created a panic in the US Defense Department. Building each one of their flagship F-35 fighter jets needs 400 kilos of rare earths. Running your military on a product that you can only buy from your likely World War III enemy is a bit of a military strategy oopsie.
The military obviously are very concerned because rare earth magnets provide the guidance for their weapon systems on tanks, the tail fins on their smart rockets and bombs. Presently they all come from China.
Oddly enough though, I actually have good news about this situation.
The Australian government understands the strategic significance of rare earths globally.
Former Australian Prime Minister Kevin Rudd has been on the case since 2010.
That Australia stands ready to be a long-term, secure, reliable supplier of rare earths to the Japanese economy in the future.
For the last 15 years, an Australian company called Lynas has been setting up a large rare earth mining operation in Western Australia's Goldfields region and a processing plant in Malaysia.
Go back to Australia!
It hasn't exactly been easy though. Black Lakes aren't popular.
Stop Lynas! Stop Lynas!
Because the nearest community to the WA mine is 30 kilometres away, the pushback was primarily in Malaysia.
Lynas, get lost! Lynas, get lost!
But they've built a solid reputation for compliance with environmental standards in both Australia and Malaysia. Their waste products aren't just burped out as raw sludge into a lake. In the last few years, they've been expanding the operation with additional processing facilities in the outback town of Kalgoorlie and in the US state of Texas. All of this has been done with financial support from the Australian government and the US Department of Defence to provide an alternative to China for sourcing rare earths.
You see, Australia equals the periodic table. We also have the biggest and best mining companies in the world.
Oh boy, do we love mining here.
We are uniquely positioned to be able to do this.
Meanwhile, the US Department of Defence is also investing hundreds of millions of dollars in restarting an old rare earths mine in California and building up rare earth recycling operations across America. None of these operations are running at full capacity, thanks to the low market price of rare earths, but they could scale up if necessary. The US, Australia and Malaysia could supply the world with rare earths for decades if China ever decided to stop exporting them. They would be more expensive, thanks to our hesitation to create production facilities that look like hellmouths, but they are available. So if that's the case, what's this about?
One of the things we are doing is signing a deal very shortly with respect to rare earths with Ukraine, which they have tremendous value in rare earth, and we appreciate that.
Why would you sign a deal to get rare earths from Ukraine when you've already got Chinese supply and a backup in Australia and California? Let's figure it out. In the middle of 2024, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham made this argument on CBS for why the US should continue assisting Ukraine in their war against Russia.
They're sitting on $10 to $12 trillion of critical minerals in Ukraine.
They are definitely not, by the way. He might as well say $1 bajillion.
That's like saying, I want a bajillion dollars.
But anyway,
they could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China.
Now, this doesn't really make any sense. Russia and China have access to all the minerals they need for the next several centuries. But a couple of months later, Senator Graham travelled to Ukraine to make sure they understood his message.
I'm here with President Zelenskyy. I am such an admirer of what you and your country have done. You're trying to stop the Russians so we don't have to fight them. They're sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good to our economy.
Ukraine needed a plan for what to do if Donald Trump was elected, and Senator Graham provided it to them. While Trump was sceptical of the need for the US to pay to support Ukraine, he's also the art of the deal guy. So, Zelenskyy came to Trump Tower with a plan.
Where we are together, I think we have a common view that the war in Ukraine has to be stopped and Putin can't win and Ukrainians have to prevail, and I want to discuss with you the details of our plan of victory.
Our plan of victory. Not our plan of peace, of victory. 2 weeks after he was elected, Lindsey Graham was on Fox News talking about a deal.
Donald Trump's going to do a deal to get our money back, to enrich ourselves with rare earth minerals.
Interesting.
But you know the richest country in all of Europe for rare earth minerals is Ukraine? $2 to $7 trillion worth of minerals.
That is a bit of a jump down from
$10 to $12 trillion.
Which is what he was saying before, but okay.
Ukraine's ready to do a deal with us, not the Russians. So it's in our interest to make sure that Russia doesn't take over the place.
And by February, President Trump was in on this too. He seems to have got it into his head, primarily thanks to Senator Graham, that under the battlefields of eastern Ukraine was some kind of Aladdin's cave full of sparkly magnets.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth, so we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
He told Fox News that he'd help them out in exchange for the contents of the cave.
I told them that I want the equivalent, like $500 billion worth of rare earth, and they've essentially agreed to do that. So at least we don't feel stupid. Otherwise, we're stupid.
Right, yeah. So, to start with, Ukraine doesn't have $12 trillion of rare earths. It doesn't even have $500 billion of rare earths. That's because nobody does. The total global rare earth market is worth less than $5 billion each year. So $500 billion is the total global rare earth market for the next century. In fact, geological experts say that Ukraine actually has no notably large deposits of rare earths at all. Modern surveys indicate the closest economically significant deposit is in Romania. And even if that weren't all the case, and Ukraine could profitably mine their non-existent rare earth deposits under a battlefield, it would take decades to build the infrastructure. Infrastructure which already exists in California and Australia. It doesn't make any sense. It'd be like Australia threatening to bomb another country if they don't give us all their chicken salt. They don't have any, and we have more than enough. So what's going on here? Has Trump been fossicking about in the Donbass and discovered something about Ukrainian geology that nobody else knows? Is Trump engaging in a Machiavellian scheme where he crafts a deal, demanding something he knows Ukraine cannot provide so that he has an excuse to renege on it? Is it a way to justify cutting off support for Ukraine because they can't pay up? Or is it possible that the flow of information is so dreadful in Trump's White House that he's trying to shape foreign policy based on ideas that make no sense? I hope it's not that last one.
Otherwise, we're stupid.
Yeah.